So welcome to District 4. We are on point with information and news. And I just found this morning, not all the time, but we do what we can. So we are going to talk about the Clenney, Florida versus Clenney updates. I had to look at this trial because I really wasn't going to originally do this trial, but somebody brought it to my attention. And whenever you guys ask, I give it to you. So I went over it a little bit to discover some interesting insights that happened just about a day or so ago. So let's start first. I do want to talk about a little bit top stories, and it is to cover the campaign season for this year. I wanted to make sure I talked a little bit about this sort of new dynamic. It is the conservative Democrat. Now, some of you will be like, conservative Democrat, like, yeah, that's what there's always been that. But this is more like the Republican that votes Democratic. Now, we saw a little bit of this in the campaign season for Obama. And it was not as prevalent as it actually is now. So the interesting thing about this dynamic is we have a lot of people claiming that this is what's going to happen, that they may not be happy about the actual candidate that's the Republican. And some of them were happy with the candidate, but not the policies that follow that particular Republican. So they decided to vote Democrat. How do we handle this? And how would this affect the outcome of the election? How deep into it are we? And these are the questions we have to ask ourselves. This is a campaign season. This is the year for you to figure it out. And a lot of times when I've talked to a lot of the conservatives or talked to a lot of the Democrats, it happens sometimes in the reverse where a Democrat is like, forget it. I, agree more with the Republican candidate. And some people are like, maybe not the candidate, but the policies, it's worth it for me to vote Republican. But it's very rare in this election. Now, not to say that it isn't rare, period. But in this particular election, we highlight the fact that it's going on more often than not from Republicans to voting Democrat. And this could affect and will affect the outcome. So we have to think about, where do you stand? It's time to get serious and really think about how this November is going to go. And not just that, just in general. What is going to happen with America from this moment forward? We need to think as voters more farther ahead. I feel like we get caught up in the moment, and that's not bad. But I feel like, in my opinion, that we need to make sure we're thinking ahead. Where do we want to be? And that's the theme in life right now, since the pandemic. I did speak about it in one of my other videos. You'll see it. I talk about the employment situation or unemployment situation and how that's being affected by the thought processes that we have for today. Our minds have changed. And we have to go along with what's happening. And so to keep you up to date, I bring this to your attention because it is something that is quietly happening that I don't like to keep everything quiet. I like to bring it to the surface because we talk about it behind closed doors. I want to bring it out to the surface so that we can actually talk about it in open and figure out what we're going to do from this moment forward. We know what happened. We knew that inflation took place. We knew that, Biden was still president at the time. We knew that the campaign season was coming up. We knew that we were affected by the pandemic, but we're not really talking about how that's happening. What are we doing and where we plan on going from here? So I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. That is something that is happening, whether you like it or not. You may not agree with it. Let me know. You might agree with it. Let me know. Or you may be one of the people that's just saying, that's me. Either way, let's talk about it. Let's find out how this changed, because it is different than any other election year where we have Republicans saying, you know what, maybe this year I'll be a Democrat. If at all possible, right? So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's something that I have had seen in a repetitive cycle. So it's sort of just there and people kind of mention it, but no one ever highlights or talks about it because, you kind of don't want to think that way. You don't want to think that someone would change parties, even if it is temporary or briefly. You want to make sure that your parties stay together. And there's a divide there. We need to figure out why and how to fix it on both sides. I speak not to just one side. I speak to both sides. If you have people defecting, people abandoning, people jumping ship, you have to first ask yourself the question, why? So there we go. All right, I covered that a little bit. I want to make sure I hit that a little bit. But I do want to talk about this trial, this addendum to the saga of I call her the OnlyFans lady because I don't like to give defendants of this nature. I don't like to name them all the time. I did say her name. Her name is Clenney. But I will only say OnlyFans from this moment forward. Now, she is accused, for those of you that haven't really followed this trial, she's accused and maybe ultimately shown that she murdered her boyfriend, Christian, with this violent, volatile sort of relationship. That's not the part I'm going to highlight. I was going to, but now I realize I need to highlight something more than this. What's happening now and what had happened just recently is that this defendant's attorney recently took the stand involving, sort of confidential communications that were seen by, wait for it, her parents. Now, why is this of interest to me and why do I have this countenance when I talk about her parents? Now, anybody that has known me for 5 minutes will figure out very quickly that I am very much an advocate for parents modeling behavior. No pun intended because she's an OnlyFans model, but showing the behaviors that the child should follow. And I think you should be an example for your kids at any age. Yes, she is a grown woman. We're not going to take that away from her. Yes, she did stab her boyfriend, and that's something I'm not taking away from her either. But I am saying when you see behaviors like this from parents, going into confidential documents that they're not, going into computers they're not supposed to be in necessarily, or looking at stuff that they're not supposed to even necessarily see, what is it saying about this defendant as a whole? About their family as a whole? And why in God's name would you do this? Like, I get, other than the obvious, right? Okay, they're trying to help. But in a crooked way, right? Are they really trying to help? Again, we might want to ask ourselves that question. But the reality of the situation is, what kind of behavior are you showing? What does this say to the world and to just anybody about your disrespect of not just the legal process, but your disrespect of what is held in confidence or what is considered to be held in confidence? Now, is this technically in confidence? That's sort of the debate that they kind of have. Was this stuff that we were supposed to really look at? Or, was it kind of just, we kind of happened on this and, it was not really that big of a deal. And maybe, yes, there were interactions and conversations that maybe I would have normally not heard. I mean, it's sort of the attitude, like, maybe we would have normally not heard this, but we did. And, let's not blow this out of proportion. And it's a little bit more than that. You can minimize it as much as you like, but the reality of the situation is it is a lot more serious than that. And if your attorney is forced to take the stand for any reason, what is that actually telling you about how much you breached? If it's not a breach, your attorney doesn't have to take the stand. You can find someone else to validate or invalidate your theory, for lack of a better description. But if the attorney has to take the stand, let's talk about how rare and unusual that scenario could be. Meaning the actual looking at the texts. I think they were some sort of emails or i.e. text messages, one of the two, in this sort of confidential space, for lack of a better description. So I just had to bring that up. I have to talk about that because I was more stunned that this woman who, stabs her boyfriend, but claims to be a great citizen because she did it, in her mind in self-defense, has parents that are now, breaching confidentials. Like, you can't write this. I mean, Hollywood couldn't have written a better script. I mean, it's not funny. I mean, obviously this is very serious, but very rarely you see me laugh at stuff. But I mean, just the irony of that. The contrast of where we are in America today. The status of parents now learning that they have to take responsibility for their children. Using the shooter's case as an example where the parents were found guilty for the child who eventually goes to school with this gun and shoots up the school. And now we have parents that are breaching confidence, breaking laws, to protect a child that broke the law. I don't know. I feel like that today about this particular trial, but we will go into a little bit more detail. I don't like to keep these videos too long because we need to do quite a few of them. And so we can get to the lives and I can go really in depth and get in deep with a lot of this stuff. But for now, we're doing videos. We had to restart the channel. So I just want to keep them a little bit brief, get you to go over a little bit of stuff, just get you to think about stuff and pay attention to some of the stuff that's actually happening. And those are the two things that were really very poignant for this morning. So I want to thank you so much. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for those of you that just picked right back up where you left off. I'm sorry we don't have memberships yet, but I definitely will take care of you guys once we're at the point where we can do that. And check out our TikToks. And those of you that are already doing that, thank you. You guys are always appreciated. Mwah. I will see you guys next time.